But it's already a done deal. We can't say that we're infinite beings and then make ourselves small. We can't say that the time doesn't exist and then say that, you know, this is how we've got to all do it in order for this outcome. I mean, it's bullshit.
Welcome to the Mark Attwood Show, Adventures in the Cosmic Suit. How are you? It is Tuesday, the 6th of August, as I record this. Yes, been an interesting few days. Another one of my daughters got spiked 2 days ago. It's okay, she's fine. Thank you for caring. But it's part of the demonic attacks. That's how it works. They know exactly who we are, where we are, and they come at us through people we love and in any way they see fits. If you haven't got a copy of mine and Abby's book, Weapons of Mass Protection, I think I've got a copy here. There you go. Fabulous book. Lovely reviews. Thanks to everybody that's left a review. The link is in the description below this video. You can get it for free if you have no money, so you've got no excuse not to get it at least. Yeah. That combined with the fact that it's Lionsgate 8th of the 8th in 2 days, or less than 36 hours from now. The energies are crazy. I went to bed early last night, woke up after about 10 hours sleep, feeling like I've been beaten up. But it's okay, because it takes more than that to put me down. I've got lots of things to do. We're very busy building out the Live 5D Health Clinic. We've just received our PEMF machine, which is basically a pulsed electromagnetic field therapy. It's amazing. It just energizes every cell in your body. So I'll be popping in there after I've recorded this show. We've received our Roxiva sound and lights and sound therapy device, which is incredible. It's already, in fact, I've been building the website over the last few days. So let me see if I can find the right page and show you what this is, because it is pretty cool. Yeah, I'll just load it up. And yeah, this is what I'll do. I'll show you what I'm doing. Why not? Why not? While the stock market's crashing all around us, while civil war is happening in the UK, whilst immigration is going off the charts in America, whilst the dead, cloned, robotic, whatever the fuck he is, president is not anywhere to be seen, whilst ordinary men and women across the UK are standing up to two-tier Starmer and calling him what he is, a cunt. Did I say that? Oh, I probably just lost the Christian base again. That happens a lot. I'm not that bothered about it. Whilst all that's going on, we carry on, don't we? We carry on doing what we're doing, and this is what we're doing. So we're building this. This is the Roxiva Immersive Light and Sound Therapy. This is the website I'm currently in the middle of building. Going back to my digital marketing roots. Immersive journeys orchestrated through light and sound. It is amazing. And we've got this sound bed underneath it now, and this is what it does: lucid dreaming, deep relaxation, spontaneous awakening, spiritual enlightenment, lots and lots of great stuff like that. I think this is the only one in Ireland, actually, so we're pretty pleased with that. Same with the sound bed we've just received from America. It's the only one in Europe, first one in Europe, and all the sound goes through every cell in your body, and we can set it to any frequency. We've also got a Brown's gas therapy device there. Brown's gas, if you've not heard of it, it's 66% hydrogen, 33% oxygen. Hydroxy is also known as, got a load of other names, but it's like supercharged hydrogen, which goes into your body and fixes whatever needs fixing. It's like taking a team of builders in instead of just having a man with a van. And that can be set to any frequency as well. So I've currently got mine set to 528 hertz, and I'm learning more and more about frequencies. If you've watched my show for any length of time, you'll know that I'm very interested in frequencies. Have been for a very long time, but I'm now actually having to implement it in my own life. Woo! Oh, yeah. So anyway, I'm going to be talking today about, oh, there's one of my daughters ringing me. I'm going to be talking today about healing and where we are right now with my new friend Sandra. Welcome to the show, Sandra. How you doing?
Hi, darling. It's so lovely to be here, and I'm so sorry to hear the stuff that's going on, but I totally get it.
Oh, it's all part of it, isn't it?
Unfortunately, yes.
Right, well, let's start. I've waffled, so let me hand over to you and you explain to the viewers who you are and what you do, because it's quite an extensive list and I'd rather it came out of your mouth than mine.
I do enjoy your waffle, though.
I never know what I'm going to say, it just comes out.
I know, I love it. I love it. Okay, what do I do? It's rather hard to explain, really, because I've done so many things, and I help other people. I work in, very much for people claiming their own sovereignty, basically, empowering others to really look at and acknowledge the shadow, those things that are hidden, those things that are not you, releasing those through the quantum field. I facilitate that with another person. I empower people to do that. And as those things are released, the true you appears, basically emerges. The soul has more room. And I say the soul, it's the spirit of the person, which maybe we could talk about later. The soul becomes more embodied, and the conditioning, the imprinting, the implants and demonic entities that are surrounding many people have a tendency to disperse. So I guess that's it in a nutshell.
Well, that's nicely put. And I'm glad you said descending, because we spoke about this yesterday. We're going through this process of ascending, but also descending at the same time, so that the part of what I think mainly in the last 4 years has been, oh, excuse me, there we go. It's kids phoning dad for money time between 2 and 6 every day, and I forget to turn the phone off. Yeah, over the last 4 years, mainly, there's been a lot of talk about ascension, but not many people talk about the clearing that is necessary within us, within our energy field, to allow the soul to come in, because it creates more space. And I think that's a lot of the reason why I've been guided to talk about healing stuff instead of a healing sense, because there's many levels to this, isn't there? And it is essential to and that's what's going on globally, isn't it, right now?
One would hope.
No, it looks like it to me. On a macro scale, what are we seeing? We're seeing, I was describing it to my daughter over breakfast, we are seeing the pus coming out of the boil.
Yeah.
The boil had to be lanced, and the pus is coming out in the guise of all the things I said at the top of the show. It's horrible, it's messy, it's gooey, it's disgusting, it stinks, it's frightening, but how do you heal?
How do you heal? This is a very good question, isn't it? We heal by connecting with other people and by accepting what is within ourselves. And really, do we need healing? Right? It's not really, I don't take it from a point of healing as such in that paradigm, although many people would call me a healer. I'm an energy worker. I work with frequency. I work with soul. But we heal by accepting ourselves and by connecting with others like we're doing now. We need each other. All of this paradigm that's been out there that you only need yourself and everything else. Yes, we're sovereign beings, but actually this is a process. Those kind of paradigms are processes of divide and conquer. We need each other, really. And so that's where I come from. I come from being a person who there's very little that someone can say to me or bring to me that I either haven't experienced myself for various reasons throughout my life, or that I'm going to judge. So first and foremost, it's been seen and heard.
I've got one for you.
Go on then, go for it.
Have you ever fallen out of an aeroplane whilst learning to parachute with the Red Devils in Aldershot?
Oh no, not that. But I couldn't.
I knew I'd get you on that one.
But interested in trauma, I could help you clear the trauma.
Actually, that probably did traumatize me. I'm looking back at it.
Right.
Falling out of a plane is pretty traumatic.
pretty much, yeah. But let's face it, we fell down here, so you know how much worse could it get, really?
Well, that's what I thought as my legs were doing this.
Yeah.
looking for the ground like a beached duck. Yeah, well, that's interesting, Sandra. Is it Sandra or Sandra?
I call myself Sandra, but I have people call me Sandra, or Sam.
No, because I get that with my kids, because most of them were born in the north of England, and when I say things like grass or bath, they're like, "No, it's not. It's bath and grass," and I'm like, "No, it isn't. You can't speak the Queen's English." And then I have to have an argument with myself because I don't fucking like the Queen. So it's all a little bit confusing. So I want to make sure I get it right. So what's interesting about what you said there is that when I started this channel, I didn't know what it was doing. I just knew everybody was isolated, people were scared. I wanted to entertain people, educate people, wanted to share my knowledge, but also interview people that know more than me about stuff, which is why you're on today. And it wasn't until I got to America on the tour that I did when I realized what I'd been doing. And it was that connection. And that led me to have a vision of everybody who's awake being points of light on this realm, whether it's whatever shape it is, but on this realm, creating a grid of light. That was the vision I got. Does that, do you concur with that?
Yeah, absolutely. This is it. And what I call that seeding the field. People don't realize that just whether another would agree or not agree, by speaking, by being the frequency you are, by being who you are authentically, or as authentically as possible, we're seeding the field. And that is the quantum field, this particular field that we are in. We seed it. And so as you create that network, what happens is more and more people are able to access more freedom, more sovereignty, alternative ways of thinking, the truth, if you want to say, but there's many truths out there. Yeah, it's interesting to me, say you interview people like me, because I know more. I know nothing, darling.
And you know what I mean. You're splitting hairs there, Sandra.
Split hairs. You'd be fun to split hairs.
The best teachers say they know nothing. I know that. I count myself amongst them.
It really is the truth. And actually, why I say that also is because the world's going through a dark night of the soul.
Yeah.
Really, it is global, right? This is a dark night of the soul, whether we like it or not. And it's okay to know nothing. When we come to that place of re-identification of the self and the meaning of life, we come to that point of, for all we know, we don't know. So what we do is we do our best, and it's okay. And so when I'm working with people, that's where we come to. It's okay. You're not expected to know. And then within that, you do know. So all I know is I know what is my experience and what my paradigm has become from that. And it's a way of making sense of the world that is nonsensical. It's just a way of making sense. So when I work with people, I join with them. I joined in their reality to bring them into a greater reality of who they are. That was a bit convoluted, wasn't it, what I just said? Sorry.
No, that's fine. That's not. I'm used to that kind of that kind of stuff. Well, that is the thing. I spend a lot of my day being very busy with what I'm doing, but also I do have a lot of time thinking about or asking what is the best thing that I can put out there right now. And even when it's formulating in my head, I know it sounds like a riddle, because there's people out there in the UK now experiencing some terrible things, and you get online and you go, well, this is all part of a spiritual war. Everything's there for you, and it's like, rah, 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 you're not here. Da, da, da. Well, it's because that's your experience. That's what you've got to go through, because that's part of your spiritual journey. But not a lot of people still want to hear it, and it's yeah, it's quite. So it's, you know, it's been, so you've been at it for a number of your whole life, right? You were born.
I was born. Yeah, had experiences. I had experiences like yourself. I was born seeing things and light and people and knowing. I was brought up a Catholic, you know, knowing the hypocrisy of it. Didn't understand it in words. I understood it in an energetic. Of course, I was a child. But yes, I had visitations from beings, both demonic and angelic. And I also had experiences, out-of-body experiences were normal for me, to travel the astral and beyond. And the feeling, the most intense feelings of being this body, this tiny body, yet this vast being. I can't even explain it now, but the experience of being all of it, all at the same time. So I was like that. Then, like yourself, well, you went into the RAF. My father was in the forces, so I was a forces child, right?
Yeah.
So that was interesting.
I'll explain that. I'll explain that to some people who don't know what that means. It means that you're born into a family that are in the armed forces, and then you move around every 2 years, and you don't get to make the kind of connections and relationships and friendships. Because I knew a lot of kids that, you know, I used to chat up the girls on the Air Force bases when I was a cadet. So I met a lot of them and knew what it was like through them. But yeah, that just to explain that, it's a strange existence, isn't it, for a child?
It's a strange existence, but it's also mind opening. So you grow up in this closeted system, because you are part of that system as the child, but you're also exposed to so many different people, different countries, different accents, different cultures. So you have this mix of it, and you learn to adapt. Whether that's a good thing or not, I don't know, but you learned adaptability. So I was brought up in the forces, so I had, you know, all of these kind of contradictions around me. Then went off the rails, then came back into the work. So I have a background. I was a psychology lecturer for years, you know, and what have you. And then I went to Indonesia as school counselor and crisis management, things like that, over in Borneo, Bali, and Jakarta. And then went to Bali, and everything just blew up again in terms of my knowings, my abilities, you know, worked with shamans out there, and then came into the full-on demonic attack place, which I'd been in from years as a child, different times during my adulthood. It wasn't new to me, but the extent of it was new to me.
When are we talking here? How many years ago?
So I left Bali in 2017. As the change happened, there was a big change happened, both with the tourism coming in, people coming in, developing Bali. But the biggest change was the energetic. Bali went from this balanced field of dark light, for want of a better word, dark and light, to an influx of a lot of dark stuff going down, a lot. And I was working with this, yeah.
Well, I want to be specific about that for a second, because Bali comes up a lot. A lot of my friends and extensions of friends moved to Bali around in this period.
Yeah.
And it seemed to be like, you know, like in the UK, there's that town. What's that town called in Derbyshire? Hebden Bridge.
Oh, okay.
Is a kind of like honeypot for spiritual people.
Yeah.
And then there's a place south of London that's very similar. Then there's Ibiza, and then there's Bali. There are these sort of global places which just attract.
Yeah.
And I remember years ago with Ibiza in particular, when I was involved in the crypto space, there were some heavily, and I had inside information, heavily demonic people that moved there and set up camp there. And then everybody seemed to move to Bali. What do you think that's about? Is that because the reason I asked you about what year it happened is because I think the peak of well, I wouldn't say it was the peak, but my dark night of the soul was, I think, 2017. That's when the demonic attacks were at their height, but I wasn't as aware of them.
Yeah.
And that's when I got saved from suicide by God. And here I am 7 years later doing this. So I was interested in the timing of that, because I do think that was maximum kind of demonic against what was going on. Because what do you think of that?
Okay, so you're absolutely right, and it's interesting, that timing. I ended up in Bali accidentally. Partly, my early youth was in Singapore, when Singapore was still kampong, forests and things like that, as well as buildings. Now it's not anything like when I was a child. So it was very familiar for me to be in the tropics. It's my early memories. When I arrived in Bali, and I actually lived in Jakarta, I worked back and forth. I accidentally went to Bali. I wasn't going to stay there. Bali claimed me, literally. The burning through my feet, the offering of various things that the land brought me in objects. The people that came, Bali claimed me, actually. But yes, people go to these places because they want to escape, Mark.
Yeah.
They're escapism places, right? And there's a lot of that. It's interesting that 2017, I left Bali because of this influx of the demonic attacks were getting worse. But then I was working in terms of releasing people with that, as well as doing guidance work and blah, blah, blah. I actually went to Ibiza because I was offered something. Ibiza was the last place, again, I actually thought I would ever go. And the same, Ibiza was a closed shop. It was full of apparent healers, some obviously genuine.
No, there's some really good. I should point out, there's great people in all these places. I'm not, because I know there's people who watch this show from Ibiza and Bali. It's I'm more interested in the bigger picture. To the viewers, I'm interested in the bigger picture about why the demonic energy did what it did at that time.
Well,
I was saying that to the viewers, not to you.
Right. The demonic energies came in because the Balinese got twisted and corrupted. And what was more of a pure form balance, if you like, the balance between dark and light, because there is no separation in Indonesia. It's not as we do it in the West. The balance started to tip. And as it tipped, my work got more and more intense. And I loved the land so much, I didn't want to be there to see the destruction. So I left and ended up in Ibiza. Yeah.
Well, from my point of view, you've been placed in these positions as part of this grid. This is the way I felt when I arrived in the west of Ireland. And so many thousands of people that I've spoken to in the last few years feel the same about why they've suddenly found themselves in these locations. Like you said, it was accidental, but there's no such thing, is there?
Exactly. It wasn't. Yeah. There's no such thing as accidental. At the point I thought I wasn't going to stay, and I did. I was there 9 years. Fantastic, Taught, I worked with different shamans there, Balinese, Javanese, and what have you. I learned such a lot, met so many cultures, and learned so much about the demonic forces, both personally and book-wise.
Well, let's dig into them a little bit, because
Well, then let's get fun.
I do seem to spend the most of my life talking about fucking demons, so we might as well carry on. I was even talking about them with my daughter this morning, because they're trying to make sense of the fact that they've been literally targeted with these things. And the way I tried to explain it to my eldest daughter was, think of Agent Smith in The Matrix, who can just inhabit anybody at any time to find you, track you down, and then attack you because of who you are and where you are and everything else. And she gets it completely. But it is still a subject that people look at you like you're not wrapped too tight. What's your view on all of that?
Well, it's challenging. Like yourself, I've written a book on it, and it's all based on this in Bali. There's different types of demonic forces. And There's the archonic forces, some of which are created by human creation, actually, and human mind emotions, that then become entities that are not real soul entities. They are lost a bit. You've got your demonic forces, your fallen angels, you might say. We would call those demonic. We have off-world forces as well. So those that travel through the dimensions, people forget maybe that we're living in this multidimensional world. We're sitting in multidimensionals now, right? We might be talking in this 3D and going through the airwaves, which is something else. They're astral forces. They're very much alive in many of the cultures I go to, whether it's the Middle East or the Asian cultures. They are kept in awareness of the people.
Well, we were talking about that yesterday. Like, when I lived in Morocco, all the Moroccans know about the jinn.
That's right.
They literally have daily ceremony. You know, down to don't wash your vegetables at 5 p.m. because the jinn come through the water or the taps and stuff like that. It's just part of normal life for them.
Part of normal life, exactly. But I've met them, and they are real, and they are there, but they're not hidden. In fact, and I have this in my book, an example. I remember being in Indonesia and having a translation of this newsreel, because there's lots of it, and there were other politicians out on the streets decrying other politicians for using magicians, alchemists, what they're called dukun, black magic, to keep them in power. And they were trying to outlaw that on the streets of Indonesia, in Jakarta. It's that much open. It's that much known about. This is not secret. The influences through the political systems are not kept secret. They're there. And we have ours hidden now. You know, I guess if you go to the Bible Belt of America, whether you agree with it or not, you know, they would talk about your demonic forces and Satan and everything else, will they not?
Well, that is interesting, because I often tell the story about when I lived in Florida for a bit, and went on a road trip to Georgia. And the only way I knew I was in Georgia is because as we started driving from Sarasota on the road, it was like titty bar, titty bar, titty bar, titty bar, titty bar, church, church, church. Oh, we're in Georgia. But the devil came down to Georgia, and the Georgia Guidestones are in Georgia.
Exactly. Absolutely. The devil is alive and well.
It was interesting, wasn't it? Yeah.
But if you get some people who are really far into the Christian thing, you and I talking about this would be, you know, we'd be burned at the stake back in the day.
Oh, would we?
Stuff. It's all the same stuff.
Yeah.
The challenge we have in the West, and they're trying to do this in the burying of the cultures in places like Indonesia, Bali, for instance. You can see it now in the people. The challenge is to bury these things below, because if you bury it away, if people don't know, then they can do nothing about it.
Well, they've been very successful at doing that in the West.
They have, yes. Yeah.
It's the reason why people for me, it was probably the reason why I buried my demonic experiences. I didn't talk about them hardly to anybody unless I was drunk, and it was, you know, late at night, it might come out. Otherwise, I just put it under the carpet. And part of that is because it's like people look at you, like I said, like you're a nutter if you talk about demons. But I think what we're seeing at the moment in terms of the politics, especially in the West, is that people are using these terms now. They're like, you know, this is evil, he's a demon, you know, Keir Starmer, the Boris Johnson, what's his name, Joe Biden, all of this kind of stuff. These words are being used more and more and more. So for me, it does feel like they're being exposed, and there's nowhere for them to hide. And it's just the video I was going to make this morning was actually one about how there's nothing new going on here. It's just that they're just being exposed. So it's like the opposite of what's going on where they're trying to push it underground. It's been pushed underground, but now it's coming to the surface because there's nowhere else for it to go. And as a psychic, I want to ask you why you think that is. What? I mean, obviously, I'm an apocalyptic optimist. I think it's all part of the Great Awakening. But what are you picking up? What do you feel?
most definitely part of the Great Awakening, but we're not separate. So we want to talk about the politicians as if they're separate to us, but we're not. We're all human. We are all embodied in this human body, shall I say, actually. And we can go down the road of clones and things, but if we just put that aside for a minute.
Yeah.
We're all embodied. I feel that this is also showing us that we need to look at our own selves, not just externalize it, but realize that what's on the macrocosm within the microcosm, and we are the microcosm. So how are we being affected by this? What are we seeing in the other that is also influencing ourselves? So to be very careful of demonizing others without looking at our own demons. So that's the work that I do, right? Is to look at what are my demons. Well, they're showing what we are also under influence of. And as people awaken to that, how am I behaving here towards that? What am I directing? What's the feeling inside? Because there's one thing to come from a wish for freedom and sovereignty to going down that demonic road and being influenced on a different way on this, you know, being blindsided by it, being influenced by demonic forces to make behaviors or be in a way that then is contradictory to the self, to the soul.
Well, it does seem to me as if these behaviors are coming to the surface, and they are giving everybody an opportunity to make a choice on a macro and a micro level. And I think that's what's going on a macro level. Humanity is being given a choice, and it's coming up to the surface on a micro level, yes, on a street by street level, on a neighbor to neighbor level, and on a daily level in yourself personally. And it's as above, so below. Yes. And one of the things that I talk about a lot all the time is shame and guilt are the two things that have really tethered down the human race to not, you know. And I go back to our, you know, when I asked my my nan why she didn't speak out when my dad was abused, and she said, because I was so afraid, because he was part of the church. And, you know, I'm living in a country which has had centuries of this, and people still don't talk about abuse for the same reasons, shame and guilt, shame and guilt. I have witnessed the interviews of over 30 septuagenarian men who were abused as children in a Catholic school. And it was the first time they'd ever spoken about it since they told their parents, and they were beaten up as boys for telling their parents about it by their own parents. I mean, you know, we've lived in a demonic world our entire lives. So, you know, what do you think is, you know, you're doing great work one-to-one with people, and so are hundreds of thousands, if not millions of others across the planet, and all those light workers doing work. Where are we at with that? If you look at it, I mean, I always use the term warfare, and maybe I should veer away from it in the future, but I see it very much that it's good versus evil. I've had to face my own demons. I've done things that I regret in my life. I've had to get through guilt and shame. I've had to forgive myself. I've had to forgive everybody that's wronged me to be able to come forward and be public about this stuff. Where not everybody feels like they can do that. You can't heal everybody all at once. So what is the answer for us as individuals to get to the point where we're helping ourselves?
Well, first of all, you know, I feel I would first of all add another thing to the shame and guilt, which is hatred of other or self. Which is incredibly destructive. And that's why I'm saying don't let the demons allow that, so that you're attacking someone there with hatred because of this.
Because you're attacking yourself, effectively.
Attacking yourself. Secondly, as I said, we're seeding the field. So the more people who are here doing this or mentioning it or talking about it or just holding that particular knowledge, frequency of vibration is seeding the field and opens things the more possible. It's very, very challenging to look at your own shadows. That's why it's in the shadow.
Yeah.
Right? It stays in the shadow because, as you just said, there's shame, there's guilt, the blame, all of this. What I want, much of the shadow is not actually the human, the true human self. We're born into trauma. We're born into a traumatized world. People talk of the soul just as I do. but the soul is traumatized. That's the recycled being that is being re-traumatized, going through that reincarnational cycle, which has become a false cycle, actually. The spirit is what needs to really be embodied. The spirit is the pure infinite being that we actually are, hugely more than we think we are, or can even imagine to experience in this. So as we look at our own selves, which is really hard, that takes other as well to hold a space or to be able to show us, because we don't always see ourselves, do we? We look in a mirror, it's opposite. It's a total introversion. As we do that, what I'm realizing through my work and through people is that the false self is the shame, is the blame, is the guilt, is the shadow. And so as we can acknowledge that with as much neutrality as possible, we can actually shift it from the field, because it doesn't belong to you. So whatever doesn't belong to you energetically is actually really, really, really easy to shift out.
Yeah.
Also clearing through the ancestral lines. Remember, we have this DNA. A lot of past life memory may well be, great grandmother's memories. Actually, who knows, who cares really, right? We don't know the truth of that. It's part truth, part not truth. So by clearing through any ancestral lines, ancestral curses, and ultimately by clearing through, accepting that we've all made conscious and unconscious choice to align with the dark forces. All of us, whether it's in this particular lifetime or other consecutive lifetimes, whether it's through our ancestry, we would not be here on this world in this position if we haven't made some kind of silent consensus that this is okay. We have consented on some level. And I know people aren't going to like me to say this, but that we have somehow consented. And it can be an unconscious consent. It can be unconscious agreement, from simple vows and promises we make in wedding ceremonies to, I promise to serve this country. You've been there, right? I remember the days I was dragged up. I was in my teens in a theatre and told to stand for the national anthem. It was in the RAF camp, right? I'm not RAF, but anyway, those kind of consents. What have we agreed to every time we make a vote?
Yeah.
Putting X on a paper. I'm not saying right or wrong. I'm just saying being aware of what we are actually consenting to and what we may have consented to during the years, the signing off of our kids with birth certificates and blah, blah, blah. And I'll say again, not right or wrong, but what is possible is to actually start to recognize those bondages that we have around us energetically, and to shift that, and shift it through consent. And then I go into someone's energy field and shift it, which is very, very quick. It's instantaneous, actually. And as that happens, a person becomes more and more free. They embody more and more of who they are, their spirit, their soul. The soul needs healing. Our soul that's been recycled and come in is an extremely traumatized soul that comes into a traumatized world.
Well, yeah, that's definitely how I feel. But I don't know. I mean, some people call it soul catching technology. Some call it the reincarnation wheel. This place I've seen as a farm for a long time, and our souls are recycled here with the false light trap. Does that concur with your experiences?
Yeah, and also this is not new. We've got the Tibetan Book of the Dead. The Tibetan Book of the Dead tells you how to bypass the demons who don't get caught up here, right? But let's not, and also we've got, what's the whole thing about the transcendence of enlightenment that the old yogi people do? Is all about getting off the reincarnational wheel, escaping this matrix. It's just put in different words, isn't it?
Well, it's like the rainbow body Tibetan monks. Was 170,000 of them on record, maybe more. So it's not like none of this is new.
No,
but
this is not new whatsoever. What I do know, Mark, and I know that without psychedelics or what have you, I've seen the beauty of this world. There are times when I've been really blessed for the spirit to come in and be able to see what is truly on this world. What I know from traveling back and forward into Britain, especially, is that over this last 15 years, maybe, there's been a cap put on it, almost like a film that is not truth. And it wasn't like this 15, 20 years ago. And I see it.
That's interesting.
Forward.
That's interesting. Why is that? Is that for the good or not?
No.
So where do you think that's come from?
From all sorts of things. I know that when I look in the sky in Britain, there's more satellites than any other country I go to around this little space. I mean,
well, if satellites were real, that wouldn't be possible because they have to go all the way around according to.
Yeah, I just know that there's these things that I track through the stars, and I've seen the UFOs as well, and they're not those, but there's interference, right? I know there's interference. I get tinnitus as soon as I enter the country, which goes when I leave. My body hurts when I enter the country, but there's something here. There's a cap, and I see it with the people. It makes me weep sometimes. With there's a subjugation that's going on. I'm not saying it's not all over, but I see it specifically in Britain.
Why Britain?
I don't know if it's because we're a warrior nation, if we're a conqueror of worlds. I don't say that's not right, wrong, or whatever, but there's something about the true Celtic Gaelic nations that are magical people. I mean, there's, they're not the seeding of the human race on the Celtics and Gaelics is said to be fairy. It's said to be ethereal, that is being embodied. I don't know if they're trying to crush that. Not that they're not crushing people all around the world, because I travel a lot and I see.
But do you think there's anything to do with the ley lines and the grids?
Quite possibly.
Because they are incredibly intense in Britain and Ireland, aren't they?
Quite possibly.
Mm.
But I do notice it more and more. And it is quite shocking to me, actually, what's going on. So to go back to what you were saying of how do people do this for themselves is by gathering information in these little snippets, someone accidentally coming across this talk or something like that, whatever, is to notice first and foremost what's happening and what that the influences are that they're allowing into their lives. Basically.
Well, yeah, that again, everything we're talking about today is like listening to my conversations with my kids, because I'm having these chats with them and I'm saying, every single choice you make from the moment you wake up to the moment you go to sleep, you have to understand. And we were talking about consciousness today, and I said, look, everything on your plate, you should just spend a minute and look at what's on your plate and ask yourself, what is that? What is that? What is that? Where's it from? And the same with your clothes, the same with your friends, what's going on, and looking at the symbols around you and just being aware. Awareness seems to be the biggest problem.
It's the biggest thing. And this is the distraction that's happening, isn't it? If you crush the people, if you get them having to, really slave to pay the bills to put food on the table in the first place, if you bombard them with stuff. I mean, people know all of this stuff. I mean, what's coming through is demonic. Look, humanity does not do this to humanity, do they?
No.
Basically, the soul does not choose, the true pure soul does not choose to hurt another in general.
I think
this is important, and this is the place to go, because the influences, you cannot know if you've got something influencing you if you don't know your true self. If you don't know your true preferences, is this really what I chose, or is this what my grandfather chose for us, back in the day? Is this really what I choose? Is this truly what I like? Is this truly who I am? And when people start to awaken, there is this kind of alternative voice that comes from their own self that starts to arise and questions itself. I mean, that's my experience, most definitely. But it is about knowing yourself and realizing that there is nowhere to go with all of this. It's at moment to moment to moment to moment. And how am I now? And how am I now? And what's my choice now? And that's discipline. And that's another thing that's gone out the window with the distractions.
Yeah, it does. It does feel to me like the discipline's definitely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And it's so, it's hard. One of my sons, hard for me to even get a word in. He's halfway out the door on the phone as I'm grabbing.
Right.
Whereas there was a great picture this morning I saw on Twitter of a girl in the 70s sat next to a radio waiting for her favorite song to come on so she could press play and record. And I thought it took me back. And I remember sitting there for hours. Yeah. And that took discipline, that took patience, and that took this concept that kids have now when they say they're bored. And I'm like, if my kids ever say that, I say I've never been bored once in my life.
Yeah.
And if I even feel bored, I've got a million things I can do, which don't revolve around this.
Right. But discipline's a dirty word, see? So right, all of this distraction, all of this so-called freedom being, that comes through the New Age philosophy and things like that's another place that has been infiltrated. Even back in the day, don't call me New Age. And, I was doing raw food many, many years ago, back in the 80s, right? I'm back carnivore nowadays, but this is not new to me. I was looking at the conspiracy theories very, very deeply in the 80s, This is not new. No one's got any excuse actually to say that it is. It's just more prolific. The whole thing of discipline is a dirty word now. It's child abuse if you expect. It's got to go down into that area, isn't it? If you want some discipline, how can you discipline? They're free beings and all of this. Yes, they are. But these free beings cannot get through a system they don't know how it's working, right? So you get distracted, they're never going to break the system. And some of these people that I'm meeting, some very young people, these are first timers on this planet. They've come to break the system. But that takes discipline. It takes knowing the system. It may mean entering the system for a minute while you learn it and then cracking through it. All of these things have been taken apart, aren't they?
Well, they are. And that leads me to the optimism of this chat, because there is optimism to this, isn't there? Despite all the talk of demons and crap and things that people are seeing, it's ultimately for the benefit of us getting out of this, isn't it?
Right. There's many, many people like you and me around the world. We're 10 a penny now, right? So what is the optimism is that ultimately, I've said it already, you are spirit, you're an amazing infinite being. All you have to do is know what is not you. And what is not you is the imprinting, the conditioning, what you've been told is you. You'll know if it's not you because there's something that doesn't feel quite right, basically. And it's possible to shift that. More and more people are shifting that. Ultimately, freedom's here. But freedom doesn't mean of doing whatever. It takes a bit of discipline. And your soul, as an infinite soul, cannot be anything but a part of the divine, and that includes all these demonic forces. Nothing exists apart from the divine. It cannot exist, you see. It just wouldn't exist. Nothing apart from the true creator, the creator of all beyond this. There's many, many places to get help. There's your books, there's my books, there's healing work. It's not only one-on-ones that you have to do. I do group healings as well, for instance. There's other people you can find on the net who are doing group clearings, who are helping.
Let me just share your website with everybody. This is Sandra St Yves. How do you spell YVES?
St Yves.
St Yves. Oh yeah, of course it is. A bit of French there.
A bit of French comes from my French background.
Yeah, I was reading the Y's and way yesterday because I like Cornwall, probably.
That's everyone thinks it's that.
Okay, Sandra St Yves, and it's .com, and there's all sorts of stuff there. And I try very hard to make sure that whoever I talk to on this channel, I've already worked with or experienced. Occasionally, it's not happened, and sometimes I've got it wrong. But I had a session with Sandra yesterday, and it was really good. And you should definitely have a session with Sandra, at least if you feel like you need one. What was that like with me yesterday? Because that's the first time we spoke, wasn't it?
I could feel the downness. You're one of my heroes, so that always makes a difference. You know, we're all human. I wanted to do a session. This is something I've wanted to do with you for a long time. You know, is meet you, whether it's on the ethers physically or whatever. I'm sure we've met before. I love doing a session. What I will say is when I'm doing sessions, I used to work with a lot of guides. Now I work soul to soul. I speak with someone's soul, basically, because there is nothing else. You are an infinite being, a being of light.
Was it a bit of a disappointment then?
Never. No, I was much more concerned because I could feel your low energy.
Low energy?
Low energy.
I'm working like a bastard. What are you talking about?
That's what I mean. Your exhaustion actually is probably a better way to put it. The type.
Yeah. No, I am exhausted. There's no question. But that's because there's no day off this.
No, there is no day off.
There's no day off. You cannot take a day off what we're going through right now.
No, that's right. You can't. And that's another thing. This is a way of life. It's not you go meditate for 10 minutes and you'll be okay. It's a way of life, and awareness is a way of life. It's not dipping your toes into it. But the more you do it, the better you become in terms of your integrity and where you're going. And then people cannot pull you off track so easily, except for children, of course. I put that little caveat in there. Is children do have a way of doing things, do they not?
Yeah. Well, they exhausted me the other day because I was up all night saving them from.
That's whatever. Right. So I saw you the day after that. You see,
well, I'd had about 3 hours sleep.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. But it is a good point actually, because there are going to be people watching this right now going, "Yeah, I'm exhausted as well."
Yeah.
How what kind of people normally come to you? Are they at their wits' end, or are they just a bit, big mixture of people? And when people say, like, I'll ask you, right? So if I'm exhausted from doing this, what do I do? I can't. My conscience won't let me take any time off, because pretty much every second of my day, apart from trying to be a good dad, is spent trying to think, well, what can I do today? What can I do? How can I contribute towards this being a better place? How can I contribute towards me being a better version of me, or being the true me? How do I deal with that? And then there's all these distractions constantly. And I was talking to somebody about this morning, not my daughter, somebody else, who was saying a similar thing, that these small, mundane, pesky tasks of the day seem to be harder to do the more we go through this, and they seem to become more of a distraction and more of a pain in the ass than they ever used to be. Does that all sound familiar?
Yes, but what do they say? What happens before enlightenment? You wash floors and carry water, or something like that. Chop wood, carry water, and same. It's those things, and it's that embodiment. You see, these beings we talk about are in the astral. Our heads are in the astral. We're here to embody. If you're not embodied, you're not going to manifest nothing, really, right? You're just going to be off there, and the mind's going to take you all over the place, because that's the game. Now, you can't be taken all over the place into the astral, because you are astral and beyond. So I'm talking fourth dimensional astral. We are in the fourth dimension already. Otherwise, we can't observe ourselves doing this, right? To go beyond that. It's about coming into the body, whether you do that through having a cuddle with someone, whether you look in your pet's eyes and kiss its nose, whether you hug your child, whether you hug a tree, drink good water, all of these things. But ultimately, it's bringing yourself into the moment. And that's the hardest thing. It's where am I here and now? It's breathing down to the feet. Can I even feel my feet? I don't even suggest people meditate anymore, because that's become another bypassing thing. Let's go off and transcendentally go up here No, don't do that. I mean,
I've been kind of like that for you know, when everybody was going, oh, there's a group meditation, you're coming. I'd be like, no. And they'd be like, why not? Why aren't you coming? And I'd be like, I don't know. Doesn't feel right to me.
The whole purpose of meditation is to be in the here and now, to be aware of where we are now. And then when we're aware, nothing can hit us. And when it does hit us, we do something about it. And what I want to say to people is, and this is what I teach all my clients, and all sorts of people come to me, from corporate bankers to yoga teachers to other healers who want mentoring. Young star beings who are stuck here going, what the fuck is going on? Because I've come here and I don't know, I can't talk to anyone, right? So all sorts of people. I don't have that kind of niche, and neither do I want to put myself in that place. If you feel you're being attacked and something is negatively influencing you, and I've even taught my young grandson to do this when he was 3, he started doing this. You claim, I am a sovereign being. This actually backfired, by the way, with my grandson, because he now will go, it's my body. Yeah, when you want to get into pajamas.
Yeah,
but
yeah. I've had a similar experience. Yeah.
I'm a sovereign being. I am a soul. I'm a sovereign being in my own right. Nothing, consciously or unconsciously, has a right in my space without my permission. Now, why consciously or unconsciously? Because we can unconsciously invite things, whether it's through the TV or whether it's because we just commiserated with an angry family member or whatever, right? It doesn't matter, does it? Or it could be a demonic thingy that you've met eyes with, you know, those soulless people that hit you in the street sometimes.
Yeah.
So you claim your sovereignty. You claim your sovereignty. You say and you state in whatever words you want to that nothing has right in my space without my permission. I give nothing my permission. And why I go like that is because energetically you can shift this. Like clicking fingers, for instance, even. There's a reason why all cultures bang drums and things when they're getting rid of spirits, or click sticks or clap hands. So you do this. And if you're being attacked in the night, I know many people call it sleep paralysis. It isn't. Right? I claim my sovereignty. I'm a sovereign being. Nothing has a right in my space. Go, you know. And if you've got to be, you have to be firm about it. You wouldn't, you know, if an intruder comes in your house, you're not going to say, would you mind leaving? Do you mind?
I tell them to fuck off and then hit them. Right,
exactly. There you go. That's exactly it. I was actually taught by an Indonesian Javanese shaman to be very polite, but then he was very warped, and it turned out he was exactly what I thought. I'm not polite. I'm with Mark. Tell them to fuck off. You teach your to tell them to get out of their space now. You know, animals are very good at this. They're very good, but Ghostbusters. Give your dog permission, your cat permission to, you know, to be the barometer. They're fantastic. There's many ways.
My cat's been at it all the time. She's amazing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But it's all, you know, it's like your bookmark. God wins. Can't not win.
No, I know.
Cannot.
Whatever you think God is, you know, it's just a word, but it's all about reclaiming this power and living in the present moment. It's the same ancient kind of thing. But why do you think, just to close off on this, why do you think this is all happening now the way it is?
Well, because we have made agreements through the ages, because some of this history is ours. We've lived this history. None of us is all light. So anyone who wants to think they're all sweetness and light, we've all been on the dark side, and we need to own that and choose not to do that. Actually, I feel we're coming to the end of an age. I mean, this is prophesied for whatever reason, you know, maybe it's like those old films, you know, like Jason and the Argonauts, you know, and you've got the gods all, oh, we're just going to send them that little task, right? Whether you believe in those things or not. This is prophesied, isn't it? For whatever reason. And there's some things we're never going to know, Mark. And for all of our thinking about it and trying to work it out, who knows? But it's already a done deal. We can't say that we're infinite beings and then make ourselves small. We can't say that the time doesn't exist and then say that, you know, this is how we've got to all do it in order for this outcome. I mean, it's bullshit, really. It either is or it isn't, really.
Perfect.
Never all the other stuff. We just mess it all up. It's happening now because humanity is raising into who they are as true infinite beings. And there's some very sad little bullies in the playground who don't know what to do about that. So they're crushing things, or trying to.
Trying to being the operative word. Brilliant. Thanks, Sandra. Time is up. I will see you again soon. Thanks for sharing all your wisdom today. And thanks everybody for watching.
It's been an absolute pleasure.
Take it easy.
I
See you later. Bye.
Darling.
Bye.